Welcome to the Mindfully Gay podcast, where queer voices come together to talk openly, honestly, and with heart.
Today we're asking, what if we're not tragically gay? Instead, what if being gay is our gift?
We're exploring how to rewrite the stories we tell ourselves and embrace our identity with pride, joy, and authenticity.
Thanks for joining us. Let's get started.
Hello, welcome everybody. This is the Mindfully Gay podcast. I am John, and this is
Jerry
over here.
Last Night Chats.
welcome back. We've got we have a list of potential topics, and we even sent out a poll to all of our viewers and listeners out there, just to get some ideas on what you want to hear us talk about on the podcast. And even if you can't conjure up, a specific topic, we've kind of formulated a little list and put out there as a poll, and you can let us know from that poll what you would like for us to talk about on the podcast. And so watch for that on our different platforms: Instagram, Facebook. We're on TikTok now.
TikTok.
Yeah. Ooh,
I'm so proud.
We're moving up in the world.
FaceTime. Facebook.
Yes, exactly. YouTube for sure. So some of you might be viewing us, watching us on YouTube. Others might be listening to us on Spotify or on the Apple Podcasts or any other platform. So there's our spiel. Let's get into our topic.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, what is it? So from our myriad of ideas, something that I ran across, and I ran this by Jerry, and that just kind of captured my attention. It was really focused on kind of African American history and history in this country. And it's a quote, and I I have to be honest up front, I don't know a whole lot about this particular author and African American writer, but I heard this quote that just kind of captured my attention. So the quote is from a writer and anthropologist, and her name is Zora Neale Hurston, and was a prominent writer in the 1920s and 30s. And she talked about, in these terms, air quotes, the burden or tragedy of being colored. And that's the term that they used for Blacks, Negroes, colored people, right? Among other words, right? And in an essay that she wrote in 1928 that's called How It Feels to Be Colored Me.
1928, just for all those politically correct people. 1928.
Yeah, kind of get a framework or, idea. 1928, that's nearly 100 years ago, right? And this is an essay written by an African-American woman in the World Tomorrow magazine. So I guess it was a magazine at that time. And in this essay, she wrote, "I am not tragically colored." That's just one word out of this whole essay. And in saying that, she's saying, I'm expressing my pride and optimism about my identity. I am not tragically colored, because I think that was the perspective of colored people, African American people of that descent, that were less than, right? And it must have been a burden for a Black person to be Black. How hard it must be for you to live in this world and be who you are. So it's probably just this grand tragedy, and she's just thinking, no, honey. Being colored is not a tragedy. This is not a burden. This is my gift. This is my blessing, and I take pride in who I am. And it struck me just reading that line. Actually, I heard someone read that line. I was like, I want to know a little bit more about this, but I wanted to apply it to, queer and gay people.
Yeah,
and ask the question, or make the statement, I am not tragically gay. Because I think a similar kind of expression it has been placed on gay culture, queer culture, etc. That it must be some burden and tragedy for you to be gay. And it's got to be so hard for you, right? And I think what we typically talk about on this podcast is No.
Mhm.
It is not a burden. It's not a tragedy. It is a blessing and a gift. So I thought it would be an interesting
Segue.
topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, we are not tragically gay.
Agreed. All right. And next showing of Mindfully Gay. No. Yeah, I think I like what she's saying here, and I like the position we're taking about not being tragically gay.
Mm.
Have you ever been in a situation when people find out you are gay,
Mhm.
or like or they find out that we're in a relationship, and almost their knee-jerk reaction is, "That must be so hard in Utah or wherever we're at,"
Right.
or
right.
there's almost like this tone of projected sympathy.
Exactly. That's what it is.
Um, and but what as I was listening to this, because we talked about this earlier, but I was just listening to it again, I thought how I think in many ways people take on the story of tragic.
Yeah.
All right, and we take it on and we project it into what we think we can get out of our lives. I'm thinking for a long time, I love it when clients come into my office and say, "I just want to be normal." I'm like, ew.
and what is normal?
Yeah, but and whether that's about their mental health or whatever, it's so interesting, kind of this addictive quality of wanting to be normal. And I do think words open gateways to where people's mentality is. I would love for someone to come into my office and say, what I really want to be is unique.
Ooh.
I really want to know how to expand upon this gift that is my life.
Right. You just don't hear that. And yeah, you're right. I think we get addicted to and certainly accustomed to just certain words and phrases and descriptions, etc. There's a long list of that. And we've talked about this a little bit before, but just that becomes our narrative, that becomes a story. And I know I certainly am wrapped up in that too. I have my own narratives and stories around certain things. And I see myself even, I think, a little bit more clearly now. I'm still working on this, but I can see how I craft that story. And in whatever situation or scenario that I happen to be in, I fill in the blanks, meaning I'll perceive it in a certain way and put my own labels and markings on it to fit my narrative.
Yeah.
So if someone is, looking at me in a certain way, I can have the choice of say, well, they're looking at me because then they don't like black people, or they know that I'm gay and they're intrinsically they're judging me. That's my story.
Right.
Right? Where I have no idea what they're thinking or what they're seeing, but I've somehow construct a narrative of that shapes and fits, I guess, my comfort level of what I know.
Do you remember me sending you this thing about the hallucination?
Yes. Yes.
I think I'm just going to read it.
Yeah, because
hopefully make it interesting. But this was a post that Charles actually sent this to me. It was on Facebook, and it's a quote from somebody. I'm not even going to try to say that, but we'll put a reference on the podcast.
Yes.
So it said, "We are living in a hallucination." In 1980, researchers at some university conducted a study that was supposed to shake our understanding of perception and reality. Participants were told they would be taking part in a psychological experiment that examines how people react to facial disorders.
Oh, that's right.
Everyone had a deceptively real scar put on their cheek with theater makeup.
Yeah.
Participants looked in the mirror and were reminded of their purpose: to interact with strangers and then report how they were treated.
Yes.
Then came the clue to the trial order. Shortly before they were sent out, the mask designer said they needed to make one final correction. In reality, they completely removed the scar.
Yes.
The participants continued to believe that they were created and went out into the world with this conviction.
Mm-hmm.
When they returned, they reported predictable things. People had been rude,
Mm-hmm.
repulsive, odd. Some said others looked away more often. Some felt sympathy. But there was no distortion.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that had changed was the faith of the participant.
Yep.
They thought they looked damaged, and their brain found exactly what it had expected, not as a cognitive strategy, especially as a neurobiological pattern that shapes perception itself. And then the author goes on to make some comparisons, but I think that is an interesting social experiment.
Yeah, it is.
I hold a belief about how I look, and people and places and circumstances show up
Mm-hmm.
as secondary characters to the story that's in my head.
That's it. That's it.
Um,
I think it's just fascinating. And yeah, we do that with looks, like with that example of thinking there's a scar and there is no scar, and creating a story around that. Or just the feeling like I read with that quote, the tragedy or the burden of being gay, or the tragedy or burden of being black, or whatever the case may be, and creating that narrative as you walk out into your world. We also talked about, as far as what we wanted to talk about for this episode, is the relanguaging of all of this.
right.
How do we step out of, or move through, or even just recognize that we're creating this story in our own heads? And then once we recognize it, how then do we reshape it or change it, or even if there's a value to do that?
Yeah.
Because I think if you kind of live in this narrative and that's just all you know, then that's all you know. And I think maybe, I don't know, there certainly can be some arguments around this, that person isn't able to step out of that, or doesn't want to, because there's value in some reward in living in that way.
Yeah.
But what is it that we can do to help recognize that narrative, the words that we use to describe ourselves, that we reinforce out in our world, and relanguage, change that? Your thoughts, your answers. How do we do that?
All right, take some notes.
I'm ready.
Well, as you were talking, but we had a couple examples last night. We had a friend who had a birthday, and we were in a sweat lodge celebrating this threshold into midlife. Like, bitch, you're 40. Stop it. Well, even that's an example.
Well, that's an example.
Yeah. Is, the guy whose birthday is 40, and then talking to him, right? There's like, this is midlife, and I'm only going to live this long, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, there's so many kind of limited beliefs attached to that. What happens? I'm just thinking of examples of where I know for me, when I turned 60, I kind of went through a little existential crisis.
Sure.
Kind of evaluating myself and just kind of wondering what the future was. And I became aware of how connected I was to certain phrases that I was using that was kind of promoting this idea of my internalized ageism.
Right.
And I'm thinking, I heard that last night with our birthday boy.
Yeah. What were some of the words that you were attuned to with yourself as you were turning 60? What words and phrases were kind of popping up?
Oh, well, I'll frequently just refer to myself as an old man. Just kind of casually put that out there.
Right.
And even in a bantering manner, right? Because sometimes I can just be kind of playful with it and say, oh man this or oh man that.
Yeah.
But it still ignites a neural pathway.
Sure.
and you start to operate from that
From that
yeah.
mindset, yeah.
And so I know, for instance, as I've become, I like to hike,
Mm-hmm.
and I've started to disqualify certain hiking activities, thinking, oh, I'm not sure I can do it this time. Like, so last year we have this place called Lake Blanche, and it's a pretty gruesome trail, and I did it last year, and did it. In fact, I had other friends who had gone who didn't make the whole trail.
Wow.
I thought, bitches, get behind the old man. But last night, what we heard in the lodge was an individual who had come out, and in speaking his piece, just made reference that how his choices of coming out were going to be a burden on his children. And, the reframe was, what's the possible blessing?
Yes.
What kind of magic have you just introduced your children to?
Oh, I get chills. Yeah.
But the framework that was, and often people approach, right, coming out, right? We have trepidation about coming out because we anticipate rejection or conflict.
Right. Being ostracized, all of those seemingly negative attributes.
Yeah. And it just means somewhere in our psyche, we're holding on to those old stories and beliefs that were created by people outside of our own authentic experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the question is, how do you change that?
How do you change that? But I think, you first have to recognize that that's how you're functioning, right? How do you change something that you don't believe needs changing?
Right. It's like last night, that guy just said that.
Yeah.
And hadn't really given consideration. He was sitting behind me, and when I spoke to it, I could just even feel his energy shift.
You could feel the energy shift. Yeah. So it seems like it has to come from the internal process of kind of just thinking about it and, is this really a tragedy and a burden? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a gift. And so there might be an internal process, but it seems like, I don't know, it seems like something like that needs to happen, like what happened last night. It needs to be called out in some way.
I'm often surprised. And I guess I've been doing this for a long time, and maybe I just kind of have created this different approach, but I'm often surprised when I talk to people. Like, people will come in and say they're in this emotional state. They're in a state of depression or anxiety or grief or whatever. And I'll often ask people, well, what's going on in your head? What are you thinking in relationship to how you're feeling?
Yeah.
And people will look at me all puzzled, like, what are you talking about? And what I've come to conclude is that we're not really trained or programmed to consider the interactive process of our words in relationship to our emotional states. And then consequently, I would say that kind of the reframe that I use is our words become a spell.
Yes.
Right? Our words cast a particular kind of energy in a particular kind of direction, but I have to be conscious of it.
Yes.
And an example I'll use frequently is like, we're sitting in this room and we're talking and we're having this conversation, but in the background, if I tune in, I'll hear the air conditioner. I'll hear the humming of the electronics. Most of the time, I'm not clued into those things.
Not paying attention to those
I have to
things.
literally stop and pause and take it in.
Right.
And then I realize, Miguel Ruiz in the Four Agreements talks about the mitote, which is the choir of voices. And we, just like that air conditioning humming in the background, in the back of our mind, somewhere in our consciousness, we're in an evaluative process. We're using mental cognitive language to generate how we're going to respond to something.
Yes.
Or how we're going to be engaged with it. And so at some point, we have to be willing to kind of pause and be in the quiet to tune in. What's the language I'm using in reference to myself?
Right.
Which is why the first agreement It's interesting. The
Yeah.
first agreement and 4 agreements is about impeccability.
Yeah, be impeccable with your word.
And people think that's about just walking forward and being honest to other people. But the reframe that I like that Ruiz uses is, what is the language we're using in reference to ourselves?
Exactly. Yes.
And are we being impeccable?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have integrity in
Mhm.
relationship with ourselves?
Yes. I think I get chills thinking about that, because that's such an important question and observation, because I think it is highly overlooked
Yeah.
in even in therapeutic circles. I think that even that is overlooked. And I really value and appreciate that, because I've been listening more to how you speak, even to me and on this podcast, and even sounds like with your clients now. It is that, that reframe. What would it sound like? What would it be like, to see that tragedy not as a tragedy, but as a gift? Just to even pose that question um, is such a nice, startling jolt to the regular. I'm just thinking of like electricity just kind of flowing, and some kind of zap gets interjected in there, and it makes you literally jump.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know when you've asked me questions like that, even live on the podcast or when we're just in casual conversation or talking about things, I find myself physically just sitting back, rolling my eyes into the back of my head in a way of processing, like, I haven't thought of that before.
See, I thought you were having a seizure.
Oh, no, I'm okay. That's just me thinking. Eyes roll back in my head.
Looks painful.
But it is that, I don't know what that would look like, because I'm so used to this other thing, and it's easy to say, well, life is just hard, and it's like this, and I can go on and on and on about that. But when it's challenged and asked for the reframe, or try to look at this differently, put on a new set of lenses here.
Yeah.
And what would that look like? And to have me or others contemplate the possibility of an alternative.
Yeah.
There's an alternative to this.
Well, it's like stretching the neuroplasticity of the brain.
That's exactly what it is.
I like to tell people that our brain links, if you will, are kind of like wagon trails. And if we're just so convinced of a particular thing, how do you get out of wagon wheel ruts? You have to literally jump.
Mm-hmm.
You have to jump it.
You have to jump it.
Right? And then the new path doesn't just magically appear. You have to kind of keep doing it over and over to create a new pathway.
Yeah, that's it.
I had a pretty profound experience with this, and let's see if I can articulate this without a lawsuit. Well, I'm thinking several years ago, I had a situation that at the time felt incredibly devastating. It had kind of shifted the trajectory of my life, and in that process, I went into a really deep place of despair and discouragement. And it was during COVID when we were locked down, so we had plenty of things to do for distraction. But the byproduct of that was a lot of anxiety. Like I would just kind of like have an anxiety attack. And I remember I was in the hot tub and trying to relax before I could go to bed. And I started to feel this anxiety. And my initial thought was, God damn it, you're a therapist. Take control of this situation.
Wow.
And so I thought, you know what? Instead of, a lot of times what we want to do when something unpleasant comes up, we try to distance ourselves from it.
Yeah.
Grief, anger, anxiety, depression.
Yep.
Right. And so it's like, how do I get rid of this?
Mm-hmm.
And the reframe that I use now is, what will I learn if I lean into it?
Yeah, step into it.
And so I was having this anxiety, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to lean into this. if I'm going to feel anxiety, I just want to feel it full on. And so I just didn't even try to fight it. I just kind of let it be there. And I became very conscious in the stillness of not being in resistance to the anxiety, which usually probably required some kind of cognitive talking myself out of it.
Sure.
I tuned into what I was saying, and there was this language in my head about being an imposter, about having failed, about having, all these interesting judgments that I had against myself. And in that moment, I paused in my thinking. I thought, wow, I wasn't conscious that I was so engaged in that stream of consciousness. And I like to play lawyer in my head. If you've ever been in a courtroom, there's a prosecutor and a defense attorney.
Right.
And the prosecutor lays out all the evidence they have to make their point, and the defense attorney lays out all the evidence of what's on their point. And somewhere you begin to see where the truth is. And so I thought, well, what is the evidence of me being an imposter? And quite frankly, I didn't come up with very much in relationship to the antidote to that is, well, what have you done that would suggest you're not an imposter? And then I realized I was more of a professional in terms of the social work value and ethics that I was than my accuser, than the dean of the university who had a very ugly opinion of the situation, who was running his agenda. But I started thinking about where I had spent the last 25 years of my life. And I thought, I've busted my, the evidence was, and so I remember kind of having that awareness, like, and then what I became aware of is the anxiety had kind of dissipated because now my mindset was more around what I had done that was successful,
exactly,
and was productive,
right,
and people I had worked with and helped, etc. But it all started with my willingness to lean into my discomfort. And in leaning into it, paying attention to what am I saying? What is in my head? What is the messaging that's circulating around? I think sometimes getting people to journal some of that, obviously therapy where you can talk about some of that, right? Because a good therapist will help you challenge some of those beliefs,
right?
But we can do it on our own.
And
then the challenge can't just be just an acknowledgement of the distorted thinking. I have to be willing to replace it and work on the new trail. I have to jump the old trail and start creating my own individualized path. And I have to find moments to reinforce that repeatedly until it becomes part of my new vocabulary.
It's that, I mean, when you think of the physiological component of that, it's a rewiring, getting new dendrites and all of that to kind of sprout from these neurons. And if they aren't nourished, like you said, you have to repeat the process, with the thinking process or an active process, in order for those new neurons to kind of take root, so to speak, and grow. And then that becomes the new narrative, it becomes a new story, the new belief system.
Right.
But there is that, there has to be, I think, the acknowledgement. And it's like, okay, here's the thing. Here's how I'm languaging in my own brain. And not, like you said, not just acknowledging it, but then leaning into it, rather than just doing what's probably more intuitive, I guess, is just, I don't want to feel like this. Push it away, push it back, and never experiencing the fullness of it. And when you're able to do that, I think that's when I think you are able to find the answers. And something that you said, I nodded right as you were saying it, is finding that stillness and quiet. Because that's something I try to teach and promote in yoga. It's like when you're able to find the capacity to sit still, like in meditation, for example, in yoga, and be quiet, then you are going to be aware of that air conditioning motor sound in the background. You're going to hear the background. You're going to hear what I call the subtle voices within you. and let them come to the surface, listen to them, and because also what's also in that background are actually answers to the questions you may be having
Yeah.
about yourself and life and etc. So you need to have that stillness and quiet in order for you to hear it and bring it to the surface. And I love the exercise of, because I think it's very practical, and I think anyone can really do this, whether it's, well, as those thoughts and words and phrases are coming to mind, write them down, journal them, or just make a list so you can see them. Get them out of your head, get them out of your body so you can see them, or talk to somebody. That's, of course, very valuable. Hey, Jerry, I'm feeling these things. I wonder if you can help me kind of process through this, or just hear me out, right? Just have someone you trust that you can talk to, friend, neighbor, therapist, whatever it is. And then kind of full circle is, what's the reframe? What's the shift from these seemingly negative, air quote, attributes of how I see myself, to more of the gifts, I think the positive affirmations, or the higher vibrational words and phrases that really identify and describe who you really are. Like you said, with your careers, I'm a talented man. I'm a professional individual. I know what I'm doing. I've got a number of years behind me. And then that anxiety went away.
I tell people frequently, they'll come in and they'll cast this whole story about how awful their lives are. And how, and I will often say to people, what if the difference between where you're at and where you would like to be is as simple as changing your mind? The difference between where you're at and where you want to be is the difference of a thought.
Yes.
People come in and say, oh, but my religion doesn't teach this, or I wasn't taught this way, or my culture thinks this. I'm like, well, if you're so easily seduced by everyone else forecasting your life, it might explain the disconnect. It's not leading you to authenticity. It's leading them to a place of power.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it does nothing for you. What happens when you dare to be independent of how your family casts their spells, or how your religion casts their spells? Right now, people are running all scared because Donald Trump makes people nervous. And my reframe with clients is, trust your magic. We're not going away.
We are not going anywhere.
Every time, it doesn't matter who's trying to get rid of us, we just get stronger.
Yep.
But I believe the process of being stronger is going to be the process of us engaging our magic and our medicine, and trusting innately that we exist with purpose.
Yes.
And having a good time is part of it, but we bring so much more into our communities. And Bruce and I just came back from Provincetown.
Oh yeah.
And it was kind of interesting. I had a little existential crisis out there. I enjoyed the trip, but it kind of made me like, wow. I had to kind of recalibrate my thinking a little bit about who we are, what we are as a people. And what I walked away with is how limited what's in access is the opportunity to party, to drink, to do all these other things. And yet our voices still seem somewhat infantile in being able to grasp this concept of purpose and expanding the story beyond the stereotypical cliches.
Yeah.
Yeah. Save it.
We're speaking kind of generally, but this really does apply, to any group of people or individual, And so what could we say specifically maybe to the queer individual, the gay man, the bisexual, trans man, about this process of knowing that you are not tragically fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Be impeccable with your word. what words or what spells are you casting upon yourself?
Yeah. So I was just having this conversation. I can't remember. Maybe it was with the guy with Vessel magazine, but because I think he asked a very similar question in this interview. He's like, "Well, what can we do to shift this?" And what I told him is, I said, I think within our community there needs to be a radical cultural shift. Right now, if I go on Instagram, I'm pretty sure I'm going to find about 42 shirtless guys who haven't eaten anything for a month now, right? Who are going to be ripped and tan and right. These social influencers seem convinced that the way to make money is to reinforce these stereotypical ideas. And I like those pictures. I like some of those folks, but we get so kind of committed to a particular paradigm. A question I've been, in fact, we're going to talk about this later today, is like, how do we make mindfully gay sexy and desirable?
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's a lot of messaging out there about how you're supposed to show up in the world. And I think there's a lot of people really hungry. Like last night, the guys that showed up, maybe they didn't know exactly what they're getting into, but clearly they were hungry to hear this.
Yeah.
And perhaps didn't even know they were hungry for it.
Exactly.
But once they started hearing it, it really resonated with them.
Yeah.
And so, the way to answer that question is we need to find sources and resources that have affirming, nurturing influence in how we see ourselves. Sex positive, body positive, queer positive messaging.
Yeah.
And if it's not there, then we have to create it.
We need to create it.
That's the cultural revolution. We need to have that within ourselves. I sometimes think we're so caught up in the perpetrator coming and getting us that we are blind to how we perpetuate our own misery on each other.
Yes.
And so what happens when we decide I'm no longer going to participate in that cultural narrative? So I can't just I guess I could walk away, but that kind of sucks. But what happens if I step into and create a cultural narrative that says, let's connect through our heart and our emotion and our spirit. Let's have the crucial conversations.
Right.
Let's find a community, mindfully gay. Let's find a community that will sit with me and witness me and allow me to be empowered to find my voice.
Exactly. And I think and I hope that we're doing this, and I believe that we are in that invitation to show up and just be yourself. I think our response is then what's removed from that equation is judgment. There's no judgment around that of how you are and who you are, showing up as you are at that moment. There's no judgment around that, and no articulation around how you should be. But I think when people find that this is a safe space just to be myself, then that is the invitation to continue to allow for that. I think that energetic space creation, to let go of the stuff that doesn't resonate, that doesn't serve us well, to make that space and leaving space for then to draw in, take in, and practice those gifts, to remind yourself of what your true gifts are and that authenticity, and then begin to practice it with the encouragement and support of, a mindfully gay type of aspect.
Well, a long time ago on the podcast, we talked about this, that, we've really tried to maybe distance ourselves from our professional voices and really to say, hey, we're two gay guys. And when Nick was here, 3, and right, that we're just having this conversation, and we have very eclectic and different backgrounds, but we just want to connect. And certainly we're informed by what we bring to the table, but it becomes a really powerful process then. And I think that's why people tune in is it's interesting how many people, I just talked to a guy the other day, said, I really love your podcast and I agree with most of what you're saying. And I'm like, wow, I'd really like to hear where you're not in agreement, right? The eclectic nature of our voices can create a very rich texture.
Exactly.
And I don't understand it. And I would love for people to respond to this question is, why do we hesitate? What is it that holds us back from diving into deeper substance? It's easy to go to a tea dance. It's easy to get on Grindr. Those conversations we've mastered.
Yeah. And maybe it's taking advantage of that. Take those tools, like what allows you to easily step into those platforms and arenas, and then apply it to the seemingly more challenging circle of stepping into a conversation and deep, connection and talking about things like spirituality and your spirit, your gay gifts and blessings, and the energetic realms that you live in, because we are just not talking about those things. And even I think maybe it was our last episode, or there's an episode on the podcast that's that came out a few weeks ago, radical self-acceptance. And you talked about we need a radical kind of infusion of an energy that will somehow, I don't know, summon or recognize the potential of this community. Because like you said, we are not going anywhere.
Well, and I use that word radical very intentionally. Right? Because it gets people's attention. An anarchist for the cause of who I am. Right? Radical change. I try to find inflammatory words, but use them in a more productive context. Because it will cause people to go.
Exactly. That's that jolt. That's that little spark.
I don't casually just accept myself. Right? I'm gonna like radically, fully, 100% embrace every gray hair, wrinkle, sagging ab, whatever. I'm just gonna radically, I love all parts of myself. And one thing that Charles is, just to kind of expand this, and this is something I struggle with. Like, in fact, I've been working with this word surrender here lately because I do a fairly good cognitive process, but I struggle bringing it into my body and having a physical feeling, emotional process with it. So I've been working with Charles on this concept of abundance and wealth. And he goes, well, what would wealth feel like? And I'm like, no idea, no point of reference. Right. And what happens is when he keeps asking, what would that feel like? I jump to my brain. Right. Because my brain goes to the place of why it can't happen. I do this, I do that, or too much debt, or blah, blah, blah. Right. And the challenge is he's just simply asking to feel what would wealth feel like. And when I said I have no point of reference, his comment was, great. Now it can be anything.
Wow. You get to define what that is for you. Create it.
What would radical self-acceptance, how does that feel in the body? How does it resonate in the chest, the gut, the groin, my feet?
And if there is no cognitive reference of what that might feel like, then like what Charles said, then create it. Then even if you have no reference, then create it. Make it up and become it.
When this is a thought, I think, what is radical acceptance? How do I feel it? And I'm a very visual person. In fact, I'm finding myself looking for the picture up here. You know what butter looks like when it's melting over a pancake?
Yes, I can see that.
It's like the soothing, warmth, absorbing. I think radical self-acceptance is like butter. It's like butter.
I'm writing that down. Radical self-acceptance is like butter.
Melting into
Melting butter.
into all the crevices of my soul and the pores of my skin. And wow, as I'm visualizing that, I actually kind of feel this like I feel energized in my
There you
chest.
go, right?
Yeah.
See, you've created it.
Yeah.
You've created it.
Now wealth.
Right? It's the same thing, though.
It's like melting chocolate.
It's like melting chocolate. It's like melting butter. Because I'm very visual too. I totally saw that image of the butter melting and just soaking into the very depths of that pancake. I'm the pancake.
Like all the pores.
and it becomes a part of you. That wealth or whatever you're accepting as part of yourself is you. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So we're kind of coming up to the hour here. I want to go back to your quote.
Mm.
And she said, I'm not tragically black.
Mm-hmm.
We reframe that to, I'm not tragically gay.
Yeah.
So if I were to move that into the affirmative,
Mm.
I am what gay?
Mm.
I am fill in the blank gay.
Okay. Yeah. There's your task, listener.
What word would you choose?
What came to mind? Feeling. When I feel into this, I am authentically gay. That even doesn't sound quite me. It'd probably be a food reference. I am lusciously gay. I am deliciously gay.
You are.
Those
are good words for you.
I feel that when I say.
How do you feel it?
Gooey. I feel like I want to touch myself. I feel like I want to touch myself.
Go ahead. Think of the hits we'll get.
Well, yeah, when I was thinking about it, it was authentic, original, unique. And those are that felt abstract. It didn't feel tangible.
Lusciously
but lusciously or deliciously. It has a mouthfeel.
I know, I can see you salivating.
I'm getting a little I'm getting a little warm. Yes. Your turn. While I'm fanning over here.
I'm just gay. No, before I asked the question, I was thinking, how would I answer that? And I thought, I am magically gay.
Magic. Oh, see, yeah.
Mystically gay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the visual that comes to mind is, I know it's Mickey Mouse and Fantasia.
Yeah.
Like in that wizardly,
yes.
And just zoom.
Yeah.
Right. The whole scene where he's.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I just thought, or the way I feel that, this magical flow, it's a place of ease. I keep kind of doing this thing.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
It's expansive. It's expressive.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I saw light.
Yeah.
Just very illuminated and light. I do see that Mickey Mouse. He's kind of sitting on that big kind of cliff thing, and it's just the stars and sparkles and everything. Oh yeah, and that resonance. I can just see that, like you were doing this motion, the hands coming out of the stomach, belly area.
Yeah,
just
birthing.
Birthing. Yeah. Love that.
Do you know? I saw this post on Facebook. And I did it, and I was kind of surprised, a little scared about what came out. But it said, ask ChatGPT or whatever they call themselves. Ask your AI robot. Based on what you know about me, what's the core essence of who I am?
Oh.
And I did it.
Oh,
and what's interesting is what it listed was fairly accurate, but it was alarming to read it. Partly because it's alarming what AI knows.
Yeah.
But it was alarming because to have it like mirrored at me for a moment was just like, oh, is that who I am?
Mm.
It's almost like this AI saw something about me without the critical voice narrative dismissing it.
Oh, interesting.
Because I think for instance, it said you're an elder.
Mm-hmm.
But when I hear that, I just think if I acknowledge my place of eldership, I can be pretty dismissive about it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I read it as like, well, this is a fact about you,
Yeah,
it's like,
we're declaring that this is truth.
yeah, it was like,
Mm-hmm.
And then what's interesting, it said, would you like us to create an affirmation
Oh, interesting.
based on this information
Oh, wow.
and set it to music?
And set it to music?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Create an audio file. And it was just really interesting affirmation. I thought everything about that affirmation is accurate.
Yeah.
And I thought, if I work with this affirmation, I'm going to keep working at it. I'm going to keep, see the word working at it?
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting? We keep using that word work. As I engage that affirmation, I thought I'm going to continue to engage that information until my soul accepts it as a reality.
As reality, as truth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I'm going to be able to do that is I have to feel it.
Yeah. Feel it.
And music's a beautiful way to feel it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in our next podcast, I'll do the Jerry Bowie affirmation set to music.
Valuable. And this has been an amazing conversation. Whenever we do this, it's always quite illuminating for me. Hopefully it is for our listeners out there too. But just the idea of, like you said, to simply change a thought can radically change and shift your perspective of who you are and who you can be in the world and the influence you have on the world just by a simple flip of a thought. And I love how we've not only thought but feeling. What does it feel like? I think that's kind of the ultimate question.
Yeah.
We can think all day and be very intellectual about it all day long.
Yeah, our feelings are our companions. And it's interesting. We've created this interesting, I want all the good. I want all the positive feelings, if you will. And if anything discomforting comes up, I want to distance myself from it. And yet sometimes those are our elders.
Right.
Those are our teachers.
Yeah, those are the teaching elements right there.
Yeah.
And to step into that circle of that air quotes discomfort is going to teach you something.
Yeah.
It's going to show up. It's going to show you something.
Yeah.
And give you a new perspective. So it is, when you do that, step into the discomfort. That's already an acceptance of your wholeness, rather than always pushing it away and only accepting what you think is the good part of you, and that's what you're supposed to project out there.
Yeah.
But you're missing out on the shadow pieces.
Yeah.
And to acknowledge those teaching elements, embrace it all.
Yeah. Shadow only exists in the presence of light.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. 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 There's got to be light. Like being in lodge, it's dark. There's no shadow. There's no light.
Well, that's one of the interesting things about lodge is because it is dark, it's impossible to be distracted. You can only go within. Yeah.
We can go on. We can go on and on, people. We can certainly go on and on.
I, as always, very curious. I'm really, it's interesting. The folks listening to us on TikTok seem to be really interacting with us.
Cool. Thank you.
Mostly appropriately. But we would love to hear people's comments. I mean, these conversations are rich between us, but they would only be richer with other voices and people chiming in and making comments. So you can find us on Facebook on the Mindfully Gay Facebook page.
Right.
Instagram, mindfully_gay.
Yep.
TikTok, we're Mindfully Gay. YouTube.
Yep.
Um,
And then our website.
oh yeah, we have a website. We have a retreat coming up in September. Now would be the time to get registered. So go to the website and get signed up for our next retreat.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So we want to thank everyone for joining us. Appreciate the opportunity to sit. We had a sleepover last night. John was too tired after lodge, so we tucked him in.
Got up bright and early, had a wonderful breakfast, and got online for you.
And yeah, we look forward to seeing you at the next podcast. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Mindfully Gay podcast. We're really grateful you joined us for this conversation.
If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your own I am fill in the blank gay phrases and stories with us on Instagram at mindfully_gay. You can find us on TikTok too.
And don't forget to visit mindfullygay.com, where you can sign up for our fall retreat happening September 19th through the 21st.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please rate it on your podcast app so more people can find these conversations.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.